said, you probably got my note that I was gonna miss tonight, yeah.
That's what I think.
But,
Okay. Well,
I'm not going down there when,
Before you go down there, Okay, at this time, I'll call to order the special call meeting of the September 26th Charter, Anderson County Charter Commission, and ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Commissioner Fritz,
here.
Commissioner Smallridge,
here?
Commissioner Vandergrift,
Here.
Commissioner Isbell,
Here.
Commissioner White, Commissioner Meade, Commissioner Bochamp, Chairman Stonesifer.
Present.
5 here, 3 absent.
Okay, so we have a quorum. Thank you. At this time, please stand for the prayer led by Commissioner Fritz and followed by the pledge by Commissioner Vandergrift.
Most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and the many blessings you've given us. You can show your love to us daily, Father, when at times we are so unworthy. And Lord, we just thank you for your Son and the sacrifice he made for us. Now, Father, we just ask you to be with this body tonight, Lord, as we do the work of this county. I pray, Lord, that everything we do will be pleasing to you. Forgive us when we fail you in so many ways. For it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. This time, have any of you read the minutes of the last meeting or checked them? Do you have any corrections or objections?
Move we approve the minutes?
Got a motion?
Second.
Got a motion to second. Commissioner Fritz. Any corrections or objections? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Like those opposed, motion carries. Okay, this is appearance of citizens. Anybody here that would like to address the commission? Please come to the mic and give your name and
Yes, good evening. I'm Mary Nepper from Andersonville. And Mr. Chairman, thank you for this opportunity, and commissioners. I would like to say, first of all, thank you. You've been at this a long time. And I'm not sure how many of the citizens of Anderson County have said thank you and understand the commitment and time you've put in. You started years ago. So I want to acknowledge that and thank you.
thank you.
Apologize for a rough voice. I was going to ask one question and then give the rest of the folks here a chance to ask their questions, but I guess I have the floor. I have about 3 high-level questions. I have smaller questions, but they're really not essential. I read this thing, and I had questions that a newbie would have, and someone who hasn't lived in your shoes would ask, and somebody who hasn't been in this legislation would ask. So I don't see them as particularly relevant to this body. But at a high level, looking from the outside in, the original Charter Commission delayed creation of the charter at some point, I think, or delayed submitting it. I can't quite remember exactly what happened. But as I understand it, you were legally required to submit a charter. And so it was, this body had to create a charter and then submit it to the state, and then present it to the voting public. So did something change in that process with the commission's thinking? Because originally I had the sense, having attended the early meetings, that we're thinking, hey, it ain't broke, why are we fixing it? And then when people don't know why it's being fixed, they get strange ideas of what's going on, and that's not a basis of trust. So perhaps you could answer that question. Did you change your mind? And related to that, could you give me 3 reasons why I, as a voter, should vote yes, and should talk to my other folks who talk to me that we should vote yes?
Well, let me take the first one.
Okay.
Originally, we asked for input from the citizens. Got virtually none. And so the commission thought, well, there's a lack of interest. So we said, well, maybe we can create some interest by inviting all the office holders and supervisors and that sort of thing to come and speak to us, tell us about, and to see if they wanted any changes made. And we got 0 changes from that. So we did a status report on all this and sent that in, and that wasn't good enough. The law says we had to write a charter. And of course, we were sued, and it went to court, and the chancellor said, you know, they put us back to work. So we wrote a charter, and it did take some time, but it took 2 years to get that settled. So we did. We had a break of 2 years, but then we came back and have been pretty steady since that time. And thanks to Jay Yeager for his time and effort and put in this, and the county commission for allowing us to use Jay to do this. That was a big help. And then he needed help, so that's when we got outside counsel, and they've worked together, done a great job, and we promised by a vote that we would change as little as possible. And that's basically what we've done. We'll list the changes and outline those tonight, but there's very few changes in the government we have now and what's in the charter. Now, that's the first. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add to?
Well, basically, we're staying with the same type of government we have already, but we've tweaked it a little bit to give us more leadway to, like making ordinances and things of that nature that will benefit the county. And also for places like Lake City and or Rocky Top now, and other areas like that, where we can, this is what, enterprise
Zone.
thing where it helps them to have more growth and abilities that we could do under this charter. So other than tweaking it a little bit to give us more power within the county to do things, which gives us a lot better way to operate. Because even when a sheriff writes a ticket or anyone else like that, all that money goes to the state. We can change things with these ordinances and stuff where a lot of that money can stay in the county now. And so it's just fine tuning it a little bit to, with the changes that were made to come within state law, and also to give little extra things where, you know, I said with the ordinances and things of that nature.
Second question? Yeah.
We can't advocate, Mary, I'm sorry, we can't advocate one way or the other. You ask what are some reasons to vote for it.
Mhm.
We can tell you some advantages and disadvantages of both sides, but we can't get up here and advocate, vote for, vote against. The law's very specific on that.
Oh, thank you, okay, yeah,
It-
well, may I say it, and you could nod yes or no? As I understand it, it takes about a year or so to get through a private act with a current constitution. So this would give the county more flexibility. I didn't know about the monies, and if that doesn't violate state law, then that would be an advantage. The disadvantage, by my mind, is just that one phrase that sounds a little loosey-goosey that says, all powers are liberally interpreted and restrictions narrowly interpreted. And that sounds like if you put a fox in the chicken coop, which we don't have, but it was just a little scary. And the way this was presented as term limits, the term limits does not exist in the charter, to the best of my reading, and I think we had that corroborated. But that's how it was presented initially to voters. What should have been presented to voters is this charter would give us more flexibility so that if we wanted term limits, it wouldn't be just elections, like you can be in office for 2 terms or whatever, and then that's it. That would be a term limit. By my lights, elections are term limits. So I understand you can't give any reasons why, but that's it. I did have another question for, maybe it's for Jay actually, whether or not you had a chance to talk to Shelby and Knox County about lessons learned, because I understand there were years of lawsuits.
We sure did.
May I ask if those were incorporated into the charter? Those learnings were incorporated in the
Knox
charter?
County,
Yeah, okay, all right,
we'll see some things there,
okay,
very similar.
okay, I applaud that.
I'll talk to Shelby County attorneys that work
Mhm.
out, staff attorneys that
Yeah.
work out office too about it.
Yeah.
There's look at what's happened down there now. They've enacted term limits and similar to Knox County. When, one official's term limited, new official comes in, and I'm specifically talking about the Shelby County clerk, they got rid of everybody. Well, there was no legacy history, no experience in the office, hired all new clerks, and, last we heard, Shelby County's new clerk is trying to contract with other county clerks to take their motor vehicle tag work, because they didn't know how to do it, nobody in the office knew how to do it. So there's an issue, a disadvantage of the charter, and, but that was tied to term limits. Term limits here was originally brought up, and we know that, but, we've had a dedicated email address. Nobody wrote in until that last second email we got from us about a survey that the Republican Party was doing on term limits. Nobody stood here and talked as a proponent of term limits. We have one man, who's active in county government, well respected, came to the podium one night, wanted to talk about term limits, but he was against it. So, we were always anxious to hear, you know, tell us why you want term limits. What's a good rationale, other than just say you want term limits? Most people that I know feel the same way as you do. We have term limits every 4 years. When you term limit, especially some of these professional offices, and people don't realize how complex some of these offices are, like circuit court clerk, property assessor, all of them, county clerk. County clerk has almost 32 different services they provide. When you term limit somebody out of those positions, you're losing all that experience. And, that's detrimental to the citizens. We're cutting down our services to other citizens. We're making mistakes at that point. That's not good. That's not healthy for county government. So we looked at it on the county commission side. On the county commission side, most of the time, we can only get 2 or 3 people to run in each district. At the most, I think I've ever seen was 7 at one time, and we don't have a lot of interest. And that tells me a couple things, that, hey, they're satisfied with the county commissioners they've got in that district. If not, they'll vote them out the next time around. And, I know a lot of our county commissioners are extremely well respected across the county. And, but, some people that I guess are proponents of term limits, it turns out to be, they don't want to run an election against some of our highly popular county commissioners. kind of thing. Let's go ahead and term limit all the guys out that are doing a good job that get repeatedly reelected, and let me have a chance at it. That's where that issue is. Anything else?
No, just a comment that we can't buy experience. It's really important.
That's
Yeah,
true.
you can't buy experience. You're
People
going
don't realize how complex some of these offices are. They really don't.
yeah, and this is a complex document too.
They think that you can go into the Register of Deeds office,
Mhm.
you know, the sheriff's office and start day one. That's not how it works. I never will forget, Mr. Alley, when he took over the property assessor's office, he was just amazed at how complex that work was. Now, Johnny's great. He goes to schools as much as he can. He stays on top of it. And I think he was in shock, like most other people. It's not something that you just put your name in the hat and hope you get, because you're going to be shocked at the detail. And they're all like that. It's just not one or two offices. They're all very complex issues that arise there. A lot of legal issues that you're not experienced in handling.
right.
You're going to make mistakes.
That's right. Yeah, and right quick, because I don't want to take any more time, but just a comment and then one last question. My comment is, this read to me as a procedural document. It wasn't directive or specific. And I think the alligators are in the specifics, right? Like how, whether or not in a rural area you can put up a barn without a license, that kind of thing. So,
It's in your zoning resolution. That's in state law. We can't put anything in there that's contrary to state law. We have subdivision regulations. We have a zoning resolution that takes care of all those issues. But that's not what it's about. It's put the framework of government together to allow amendments, referendums, and kind of put the details in it. It's building the house and then later on moving into parts.
yeah, okay, all right.
I think we've done a good job. We've got very good policies here, employee handbook, personnel policies, zoning resolutions, subdivision regulations, they're being reviewed right now. We've done a good job over the past 20 or so years putting all this stuff together. That's why you find that I think one of the most important things in my job is to instill citizen confidence in this government. And that's what I want the citizens to know, that we have a very secure and confident government that's well knowledgeable about how to run this government. And I think the more and more people that look into it see that. You don't see a lot of people coming to the podium at County Commission complaining about the structure of county government. They might have one or two questions about a particular office, but we tell them why, they understand, but hey, we're not, if we've made a mistake, we'll learn from it. We always have. That's the way we get better.
One last comment. I was so impressed with the last commission meeting. Such a high level of regard and respect and good interaction. And I said that publicly to some people. So, yeah. And citizens just could learn more. We just need no more. This is my last question. I promise I'll sit
It's
down.
all right.
Yeah, okay. Well,
We're glad you're here.
well, I'm representing some people. They expect me to answer some questions. And I promise you, they said, Mary, how are you going to vote? And I said, well, I was a no. And then I've been talking to people, and now I'm on the teeter-totter. So I'm looking for a reason to say yes, frankly. And so, the devil you kind of stick with the devil you know. We don't know this devil yet. So, all right. Last question. Does this charter supersede city charters, like Oak Ridge Charter or, okay. So if they're in conflict, just saying, if they were in conflict, how would that be worked out? Probably they wouldn't be?
No.
Okay.
The county has no right to come in and adjust the charters or like the home rule document here in Clinton or the charter at Oak Ridge. We're not going to do that.
Yeah, you don't see
Same thing
anything,
Norris.
and in North Hills Charter, you don't see anything that could be in conflict. This,
They may be different, but in some regards, and I can't tell you right off the top of my head what would be different. I mean, you're talking about city governments versus county governments. The city governments have the ability to create ordinances, enact ordinances all along. County governments haven't had that ability. But the main thing to look out there is the Norris Charter, the Clinton Charter, the Oak Ridge Charter. They regulate the citizens within their corporate boundaries, not the Anderson County Charter. Now, there's some things that bleed over that are county-wide, but it's really not a conflict issue.
I think that's it. I appreciate this time. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you, Jay, for all your work.
Thank you. I hope we've answered your questions adequately.
It's a good start, sir.
I'd like to follow up on one thing, though, on term limits and stuff. I officially retired as a county commissioner this past August. I spent 20 years in office and was elected and reelected 4 times after that. When I decided not to run again, the citizens of District 1 flooded me with emails, phone calls, everything, asking me to, matter of fact, even other districts even called me, asking me to reconsider.
I believe that.
And so I think that, I always like to leave it up to the people to whether to vote you in or out. And to me, that is term limits. If you're satisfied with people in your district, or for a county commissioner, then they'll reelect you. If not, well, they'll vote you out
Yes, right.
very
And-
quickly.
And I lied. I said that was my last comment. I have one last comment. I would love to see, and I know you can't do this because it's in the charter, when there is a proposed change to the charter, that there are reasons given why. So the wording, all you're obliged to do is say, this is the wording, yes or no. But I would love to see it come in a paper. Now, it says a daily paper. We don't have a daily paper. We have the Clinton Courier. So I don't know if you're talking about online. If it's online, daily, letting people know online isn't fair because not everybody gets online. So that should be addressed. That is in the charter. You understand what I'm saying?
Paper general circulation in the county.
Yeah, we don't have one, do we? What do we have? Daily?
It doesn't have to be daily.
It says daily.
I know, there is, it's basically the whole idea of bringing a printed copy is become archaic. There's very few people who get a printed copy, other than my father who reads it front and back. But a lot of people now are starting to move to online editions, and the General Assembly is going to address this issue. Most of your references are to papers of general circulation in the county. And we take a very broad approach to that. We say Oak Ridger, Clinton Courier, Morse Bulletin, they're in general circulation in this county. Right now, we don't have one other than Knox News, which no longer has an Anderson County section in it, that is published daily. So we're in that, we're not the only ones in that predicament. There's a lot of other counties that are in the same shoes. It takes a lot to run a paper that's printed off daily and distributed.
We can't.
And I understand the economy there going on, and I think everybody else does too. You'll see a lot of transitions in that in the next few years in the General Assembly. A lot of this, that word will be removed.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we're ready. You can,
Try not to take much of your time tonight. I want to give you a little handout and tell you where we're at on the educational materials. We were starting to get some rates, and I was kind of shocked at what we're looking at. We first talked about a 6-panel design with one panel being taken up, a trifold type publication, and one panel taken up was the address and the postage. But a couple weeks ago, I had a gentleman came to my office from Tricor. If you don't know what Tricor is, that's State of Tennessee Department of Corrections. They have a private business that they put inmates to, or it's a government business, I don't want to get that confused. They put inmates to work, allow them to get work credits. And they've tried to spread this business out throughout the state, like Mountain City, Northeast Tennessee Correctional Facility does wood flooring. They have a plant that does plaster impressions for all the judges and the Great Seals of Tennessee. They've also, they've got a mattress factory at another one, broom factory at another one. They're doing a lot of different things. They've now got into chemicals, cleaning chemicals that they sell to county governments, and at a big discount from what we buy from private suppliers. Well, now they're into the printing business. So the gentleman came by my office, and I asked him, I said, what kind of rate can you give me on printing this for the Charter Commission? First, I asked him if the Charter Commission would be allowed to utilize their printing services. He said certainly they would. And the printing that he's given me on a 5x7 card is going to be about 18 cents. And that 50,246 people are registered to vote in this county. We can get a disc from the Election Commission, and Tricor scrubs that disc. And what that means is they determine if there's more than one registered voter at a home, and they'll only send one document, one pamphlet to that home. So looking, if we did 50,000, you're only looking at less than $10,000 to publish that on a 5x7 card through Tricor. I'm going to ask him, I've asked him today, I want to get some numbers tomorrow on the 6-panel design, the trifold, see where we're at on that, and then hopefully, and I think this is a likelihood, I know how my family is. I had 4 registered voters at my home, and that's only going to require one mailing to that home. So we may be able to get out of this a lot cheaper than what I thought. When we started speaking with professional printers in this area, I was kind of shocked at the price, but I understood. But this Tricor price involves postage too, and they mail it out and get it all done. And I asked him about turnaround, and he said days. That's hard to do. A lot of these printing companies are backed up, and there's not a lot of people in the business of offset printing anymore. It's just a kind of dying art these days. But anyway, I'm anxious to see the prices from Tricor on both the 5x7. They've got 3 or 4 designs they want us to look at, and then the 6-panel. If we go with the 6-panel, that frees up 5 panels. I can get a lot more materials on it. I can put some more of the historical perspective of how we got here. I had to take that whole how we got here out of here, and trying to condense it to where I don't want to make it too busy, to where it's hard to read, and I want it to have proper spacing. But here's some ideas that we've got in draft form. This is certainly not the last time you'll see this, but I've got a section in here, what is a charter form of government? It starts off, the Tennessee Constitution provides for 3 forms of county government structure: the constitutional, metropolitan, and charter. Anderson County was formed in 1801 and has utilized the basic constitutional form of government since the birth of our county. Both the metropolitan and charter forms of government are optional forms of government allowable under Tennessee law when approved by the voters. The metropolitan form of government is most often seen when a county and city merge government operations to become more efficient, eliminating duplication of governmental services. You see that in Moore, Trousdale, and Davison County operate with consolidated metropolitan forms of government. A charter form of government adds considerable flexibility and broader government powers through the adoption of ordinances, but a charter form of government must be approved by the voters of the county. Shelby and Knox are the only 2 counties in Tennessee that have charter forms of government. However, charter forms of government are much more prevalent in Tennessee municipalities. If you are a resident of Clinton, Oak Ridge North, you're most likely familiar with the city or town charter and the ability to pass ordinances on a variety of topics. Why a charter form of government? The basic premise under Tennessee constitutional law is that counties have no more authority except that expressly given by them by the statutes and necessarily implied from those laws created by the Tennessee General Assembly. Therefore, many powers that cities and towns have are not available to counties unless citizens approve by referendum vote a county charter. If approved by the voters, a new form of government is authorized that can be more freely modified by the citizens through the referendum process that can either place restrictive limits on or enlarge governmental powers. Advantages of the Anderson County Charter. Changes in government operations are controlled by the citizens of the county by passage of referendums. Citizens have a greater voice in local county government policies and encourages more citizens to be involved in local government. Reduce state legislative interference in purely local county affairs. As you know now that it takes a private act to modify or fill in some of the gaps and holes in statutory law. Citizens can now recall unfaithful elected officials through the referendum process. Adoption of ordinances will allow the county commission to pass penal ordinances that allow the county to retain fine revenue instead of sending those revenues to Nashville, where they serve very little benefit to Anderson County. County employees may run for seats on the county commission, but they will no longer receive additional compensation.
By that, you're saying that the money that a county commissioner makes, they won't receive that no more?
Right, isn't that the way it's written in there, Gavin?
Because being a commissioner is almost like a second full-time job, and
Well, I understand, but I believe the way it was written, that's in there. Anyway, every 6 years, a charter review committee will meet to review governmental operations and make recommendations for improvement. Disadvantages of charter form of government. Opponents of the charter form of government often point to the fact that only 2 of Tennessee's 95 counties have passed charter forms of government, Knox and Shelby, and both have faced years of lawsuits, complications in government operations, and when combined with term limits through a future referendum, the counties have faced wholesale layoffs of the entire staff when the elected official is termed out of office. Citizens suffer with new administrations that lack experience in dealing with complex legal issues. Is it erodes the well-accepted representative form of government by bypassing elected county officials who are much more knowledgeable about local county affairs than the average county citizen. Frequent changes in county government through repeated referendums and amendments may cause instability in government operations. Emergency amendments to the charter for strictly housekeeping measures are very cumbersome and may take months, if not years, to pass if turned down by the voters. Referendum votes can only be scheduled every 2 years to coincide with county general elections. Therefore, if all tax increases are restricted to referendum approval by the citizens, this process may limit the county's ability to deal with emergency revenue shortages and complex governmental issues that could deprive the county of needed tax revenues, which could inevitably bankrupt the county. Ballots could become excessive in length with multiple referendum and charter amendment issues on the ballot, causing citizens to get discouraged from voting or casting a vote on a referendum issue that they know nothing about. Increases the opportunity for politically motivated special interest groups to weaponize the referendum process. Crowded ballots with nonsensical amendments may create disinterested or discouraged voters from casting votes, thus allowing special interest groups the ability to easily sway and manipulate elections. Got a tentative public hearing or public meeting date. County Commission has asked us to have at least 3 there if possible. I've got one at the Oak Ridge High School Auditorium, the Clinton High School Auditorium, the Anderson County High School Auditorium, and in this room here. We've also got our Charter Commission link, and that will provide any additional information anybody needs or a phone number. But again, that was written, and that's a draft form. I know I've got some issues there that need to be corrected, but that's a draft form. If we get a good price on the trifold pamphlet, I'll let you know, and at that point, I'll put in a section that has the how did we get here, is the way it was titled, and that has the history of how we got here. These advantages and disadvantages were taken from a couple of different documents that are online, and there's a good book that was written, I want to think, in the late 70s that's still really the most common treatise on this subject, and I took some of those from that. These are not things that we just pulled out of the air. These are documented facts, although in Tennessee we don't have a lot of experience with charter forms of government. All we know is what's happened in Knox County and Shelby County, but you can see some of these advantages and disadvantages have come to fruition in Tennessee already with just 2 counties that are operating under a charter form of government. But principally, I think what's the main point for charter governments? It puts more power in the hands of the citizens. Now, what they do with that power is the concern. Because, as I just got through saying a few minutes ago, they don't understand the complexity of county government. They don't understand when you push this button gets pushed automatically, or this button gets pushed automatically, and it goes down the line. They don't understand that. There's been proposals that have said any tax increase must be approved by the voters. Well, we know how that works. You can see how that would work in this county. Our tax increases are one time a year when we do the budget resolution, the appropriation resolution here in Anderson County, usually June, July. If it had to be approved by the voters, you couldn't have a tax increase until every other year. Now, fortunately, this county doesn't have a lot of tax increases, but we've been through difficult times where we had to have some tax increases. And if we didn't have them at a specific point, almost immediately generating revenue, then we would have been on the verge of bankruptcy in this county. It's a lot better now, but we've all seen that happen in the past 20 years here. So I would hate to be in a jam to where we had to produce. Property taxes are probably the most stable source of revenue, or I know they are, for Anderson County government and any government. But when you jeopardize that by having to have a tax increase put to the voters each time, you're talking about a 2-year wait on that sometimes, possibility of a 2-year wait. And that could really cause the county to be insolvent. But anyway, those are a few things that I've been able to pull out of the books and the documents from MTAS, CTAS, and Ballotpedia, and this book that's on home rule and charter governments. But please, as I've said before, if you have any other ideas on what you'd like to see in this publication, let me know. And if there's a better way to phrase it, let me know, and we'll get it taken care of. And but as soon as I get these quotes, I'll shoot it back to you. Now, if we add color, if we add pictures, if we add any graphics, you're talking something totally different. Right now, we're talking about one color on a one-color background with limited graphics, and as plain as it can be on this publication. Yes, sir.
One quick question. Do you have another copy of this?
Yes, sir.
Would you please give our visitor one?
This is a draft. I've noticed some grammar and spelling right off the bat.
Yeah, that's subject to change, but,
Yes. I gave you some. I gave you this.
Yeah, you did.
Any other questions on this document? I was told by text about 4:30 that we should have some firm prices tomorrow, and I'll send you an email with those. And I think I promised Saber and who was the other one that said that weren't going to be here?
well, Bob's here.
Bob's here.
Yeah.
And I'll get those to Jerry and Saber and Steve and see if they have any changes. But anything else?
Well, yeah, I got a question on this, and I was just curious. You mentioned Oak Ridge, Clinton, and Norris in here, but Lake City and Oliver Springs, and I know Oliver Springs is in 2 counties.
Mm-hmm. They have similar, either a charter or a home rule document.
They do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it'd be 5 in there instead of 3, right?
Yes, I'll confirm all that.
Okay. But I'll tell you, this looks good to me.
Well, I see some edits to me. My dad told me years ago, Lord, gee, probably 45 years ago, write to your reader. And I think I could do a little bit better here of writing to my reader, and we'll clear that up and put it in simple terms that everybody understands, to pick it up and look at it. And we'll fill in the gaps at our public meetings.
Okay. Commissioner Fritz, you have your hand up?
First, I reckon first thing, it's just been discussed a lot before I came on board, but I can't believe this charter commission would vote to say a county commissioner, if you work for the county, we wouldn't receive pay for being a county commissioner. That's totally surprises me.
I think there's I read this a little bit differently. I read these as
I thought it was
boards and commissions
boards and commissions.
below.
And I think that's what we talked about in this meeting.
It was.
We were talking about an agency or county board or committee or something like that, but the word commission is in there, and that may throw people. If this does pass, and the will of the county commission is to still allow this process where a county employee can run for county commission, and if elected, can receive their normal county salary and the salary of the county commissioner, which is not much, then that's fine, we can do that, but the clarification needs to be put in there. It uses the word commission, and that's subject to interpretation. But to add clarity, if we can straighten that out by a short ordinance, saying yes, basically interpreting that section, it doesn't mean county commission. The only body that we pay is county commission. Some are entitled to their out-of-pocket fees, and I think that's taken care of in there. And we appoint the water authority, but they're not county employees. But I think the only ones that we pay are county commission, so that would be the only one it would apply to. And if that's the case, and if that word commission doesn't mean county commission, because this is my argument against saying that is because we've referred throughout this document as the legislative body. Okay?
That's what I thought,
And county commission, I can see is what the normal term is that is used in the public out here is, hey, county commission's doing this, county commission's on TV. They don't say the legislative body, but if you look at this document throughout, we've utilized the term legislative body throughout. So the distinction is, hey, we weren't talking about the county commission in that section. We were talking about these boards, committees, agencies that we have throughout county government. And we actually spoke about this issue, but there is an interpretation issue on that one particular point there, but I think it can be cleared up really quick.
Well, I can tell you this, the intent was not to be
Oh, I know.
what you're talking
I
about.
know it was.
It was for the additional, issues, because we went back and used the, Anderson County, utility district as a one, and this goes back years ago, when, commissioners served on that and were compensated for it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what we were talking about, would be something that's in addition to county commissioners.
I remember the conversation, there's no doubt about it. And, but anyway, that's the thoughts on that particular thing. I believe, it's easily cured either way by arguing, hey, that's not what we meant, we didn't mean county commission here. You can see because of all the references to legislative body, or if the charter does pass, we can clear it up quickly with, reinforce it by an ordinance or resolution on point to take care of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my last question was, the way I keep reading this one sentence right here about tax increases, if the need was to ever come, we, the county commission, still can, without the referendum, pass a tax increase.
Right, I'm talking about,
That
say
would have to
somebody
be
put
added to the
together an
charter.
amendment or a referendum, and it passed the voters, and this has been a problem in some jurisdictions. It says you cannot have a tax increase without that going to the voters for approval, ratification. Then you may be stuck in a situation because most citizens wouldn't vote for a tax increase. But most citizens don't understand the complexities and the needs for county government. Most, I think, take a very hard line on tax increases. So the potential for a referendum like that passing, I think, is great. And that's the concern there. That was a particular portion that I read in one of these materials that I mentioned, that, hey, if that ever passes, watch out, you're gonna have a problem.
Yes.
You're gonna have a real problem getting any kind of tax increase through, because all tax increases would have to go to the voters for approval through ratification on a referendum.
I know over the 20 years I've been on, this commission has been very, careful
Yes.
and how we did things, because we didn't want to pass a tax increase onto the citizens. But there comes a time every now and then that your hands are tied and you don't have a choice to keep the county moving forward. in providing the services or more services that the citizens are demanding.
Exactly, and that's the dilemma. So our citizens now, as our county becomes more of a bedroom community for Knoxville, and they will get people from other areas of the country moving here, they demand more services. As I've told a lot of people, I'll get somebody about once a year calls my office, wants to know why don't we pick up their garbage? And I have to go through the whole thing of, hey, we've got convenience centers. And, but they demand more city services. A lot of people don't like the fact that we have volunteer firefighters and their ISO rating is through the ceiling, where it'd be much lower, but, sure, I can think back, Chuck, and to when you came on county commission, we were dealing, with a $3.40, per $100 of taxation. It's nowhere near that close now, but citizens don't remember that. They remember what it was a couple years ago, and you know, if you go up a little bit, they remember that, but they don't remember where we were at 16, 20 years ago on taxes.
The biggest thing I'm seeing about people, what people are wanting too, is more deputies out on the roads.
Oh, yeah.
And everything, and that, I mean, that costs money if we was to provide that. But you're hearing all the time, you know, why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? Well, they're limited on how many deputies they got, and they got the whole county they have to serve.
People, they'd be in shock if they knew how desperate our sheriff's office and EMS is for good people. It's tough to get good people out there. A lot of people just don't want to do the work anymore. You know, it's not the best pay in the world. It takes somebody that's really dedicated to their community to get involved in that public service work.
And that's one thing that got us behind with our salaries compared to other counties and everything. We went for years and years giving a bonus or $200 here
Yes,
and
sir.
this, that, and the other, and not doing anything to increase their pay. We got so far behind in every category compared to everyone else that fortunately, with the growth in the county and this, that, and other, we've been able to provide extra salaries for the jailers and the deputies and
Yes, sir.
EMS and even to all of our county employees.
That last actual raise that the county commission passed really helped our corrections side, our deputies. It brought them up considerably, and now we're a little bit more competitive, but we've got, our salary in the sheriff's office is next to the lowest in this region. And we've got to change that. You can't keep putting these people through this revolving door of training them up, spending all that money on training and supplies and equipment, and then go to another jurisdiction as soon as they're certified. And,
But
that's the
even with our,
problem.
I know a lot of funding comes from the state, but we got to make up the difference because of the number of employees. But even our teachers, you know, compared to other areas, Knox City, Oak Ridge, Maryville, I mean, we are constantly way behind even on the salaries for our teachers in this county.
Yeah,
So
well, I think you hit it. I mean, for years, county government, county commission did the best they could. This is nothing against them. They had the money, they would give them a raise, but, or cost of living adjustment, but a lot of times we saw this $1,000 across the board, $500 across the board. Those were just one time. They weren't adjustments in their salary. People got an extra check, taxes were taken care of it, out of that, and didn't amount to a lot. They were appreciative, but it wasn't increasing their salary. We had a study that was done here it's been about 4 years, that the average county employee was bringing home less in 2018 than they were in 2010, just because of the cost of inflation and us not keeping up with the cost of inflation through COLA raises.
a lot of guys in our highway department, they could probably go make more money flipping hamburgers than they could.
You don't have to bring this up to county commission.
Yeah,
We can't, you're not,
I know.
Yeah,
talk smaller.
I hope I answered your question,
Yeah.
Chuck. I agree with you, everything you said. Go ahead, Bob.
yeah, just a comment. I think it would be good to have a few sentences somewhere about the responsibilities and the role of the Charter Commission.
Yeah, I have a whole section, how we got here,
Yeah.
how the election happened, the statutory responsibilities. And this kind of goes to Mary's question before, what's different? Well, when you get down to the recall, the referendums, and the ordinances, they're pretty much all allowable in the charter enabling statutes. It's nothing that we've just created. They provide for referendums, those charter enabling statutes. That's nothing that we're doing different. It's just when you opt into the charter form of government, the referendums, the ordinances, they come as a package deal because it says you must include those. That's nothing that this body has put together and said, we're going to say, oh, for now on, we're going to have ordinances. That came with the whole idea of the charter. So if you look at this and you start getting down to what is different in here, there's not a lot. And a lot of people, they didn't know the nuances of how things worked. And I think that's a surprise to some people that read it. And when they asked me the question, I said, that's the way it's been working for years.
Yeah, but I think the fact that we cannot advocate one way or the
Right.
other is important for citizens to know that. I think there may be an expectation, well, we've worked on the charter, we prepared it.
Oh, I get it all the time.
Yeah, we should be pushing, you know. and
Yeah, that's
so,
not it.
Yeah,
That's why Gavin was gracious enough to change that last paragraph of the charter. We feel like we fulfilled our duties, what we're supposed to do, and we've done in accordance with the law, and here it is. It's not up to us to decide.
Yeah.
It's up to the voters to decide. But Bob, I will incorporate that, especially if we get the extra 5 panels on the trifold. We can put a lot more stuff in there.
Anybody else have anything to add?
Okay, I need you.
I got a question for you.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
You gave us a quote, what they quoted on the postcard,
Postcards only.
and you're thinking, you're waiting on a quote on the other. Could we pass something tonight that we say we could go 6 panel if it doesn't exceed X amount of money?
Sure. I keep using that number of the registered voters, which is worst case scenario of 50,246. It's not going to be that much. I think it's almost safe to say that could be cut in half, if not more. But we won't know until they start what they do. It's called scrubbing the list to make sure we're not sending duplicate addresses or duplicate people at one home that registered voters that may have, say, like I had 4 registered voters at one home. We'd only need 1 mailer, so. But yeah, I think we could do that.
So is there a number you could suggest that would keep us within budget?
I was trying to get that today, but I'd say I wouldn't want to go out on a limb more than $15,000. We're looking at 25, 30-ish. We need to stay under 50,000. That's what I'm figuring in my head. So I'd say no more than $15,000. We'll see what we can come up with for that. And I think we'll be surprised. I really do. But I'll let you know more tomorrow as soon as we get that.
Well, I'll move then that we allow the law director to do what he can to try to get the educational material together and in a document that keeps us below the $15,000 limit.
That includes postage now. I don't want to get into the postage. These are all bulk rate. They get a much better price than we could, so that 15,000 would include postage too.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion?
Other than the fact, that you'd be surprised though how many people out there don't really know why we're doing this. Don't realize that it came to a vote and we were forced to do it and everything, and so.
Well, the law, we had to obey the law.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but a lot of people don't
And,
understand that.
And
Well,
that's,
I think we also always said the most important part of this process is the education of the voters. I've heard that in here, I don't know, probably 24 times, and some of it's come from my mouth. It's only one aspect of it is putting it together, but you want to do a good job of disseminating all the relevant information to educate your voters. As we've all said here, a good vote is an educated vote. And we need to put the information out as best as we can, as broad as we can, and as straightforward as we can.
That's right. And that, you know what? We did take an oath of office,
Yeah.
and it was to uphold the Constitution, and the chancellor was right and gracious to put us back to work.
Well, also, it needs to be said that we agreed to that. We
That's
agreed
right.
to the order. I mean,
Yes.
when it was put in front of us, I said, yeah, I advocated, hey, we need to agree to this.
But unfortunately, the average citizen don't know all of this. That's where we've got to do a job to let them know what this is all about. You say the pros and cons.
Yes, sir. Very good point.
So, hearing no other discussion, we'll need to call the roll on the vote.
Commissioner Fritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Smallridge,
Aye.
Commissioner Vandergrift. Commissioner Ismail,
Aye.
Commissioner White, absent. Chairman Stonesifer,
Aye.
5 ayes and 3 absent.
Motion carries.
Do you want to set these public meeting dates? Those are all Tuesdays, 11th, 18th, 25th, or 1st. I was just guessing. You're welcome to change them, but we need to get that information out and on our webpage.
I assume they've been checked with all the different groups?
No, not all the schools yet, no.
They haven't, so that could be an
Yeah,
issue.
we may have to move to the cafeteria, the, auditorium or wherever, but I'll check it before we publicize this.
And and that's just for any of us that can be there.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect everybody to be there,
No,
but.
you don't have to have a quorum to,
No.
do this,
But I would
but,
appreciate at least one
yes.
person to be there with
Oh, I-
me in case,
I hope
I
all
need
of
help
them.
getting out of the place. Which has not been the first time. Some of y'all may remember trying to go around the county and get the taxpayers to commit to a jail addition. There was a couple of those places, and Tim's just nodding his head that I wasn't quite sure we're gonna get out. And one of them was the Hardys at the interstate, but that can be pretty tough. But anyway, our job is not to advocate one position or the other. We're just to tell people what's in it and what's not in it.
Well-
And, that's much easier than saying, hey, we need a tax increase to build a jail.
I had a part-time job one time that the supervisor kept telling us over and over, and that was officiating basketball.
Yeah.
Your partner might be the only friend you have in the house, so you better be
Better
on the
believe it.
same page.
So do we need to recommend these dates then?
So,
That's up to y'all.
I
If you
hear-
want to think about them and check your schedule,
Well, I'm good for all of them, but for the first one,
anybody
yeah.
have I'll entertain a motion.
I move we authorize establish these dates for the public hearings on October 11th, 18th, 25th, and November 1st.
We want to say subject to availability.
Subject to availability.
yes, sir. Thanks, Bob.
I'll second.
Got a second by Commissioner Vandergrift. Any questions? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
We don't need a roll call on
No.
that? No, okay.
Last question I have is, I'm going to be making some changes, obviously, to the content of this brochure. Do you want to have another meeting, or do you want me to send you the edits and see what you think? At that point, decide whether or not, if it's just a few things, I don't know if you need another meeting, but it's up to you.
I just like to hear from, no, I agree, but doing it that way, I don't see any need for a meeting, I
Well,
mean.
make sure you read it when I send it out,
Oh,
okay?
yeah.
Because I want you all to be satisfied if we do it this way, that there's nothing in controversy. So I'll make some edits, some things that Bob asked me to put in there, and we'll see exactly what kind of format we're going to have, and if we can elaborate more on the process, we will. But I'll send it to you for final approval on the educational materials.
And you'll let us know about the quotes.
Yes, sir, I'll let you know that immediately. I think that's a big issue right now for us.
Gavin, you have anything for us tonight? Anything you want to talk about?
Not at this time. There's a few things that I can think of that we may need to think about including in the brochure.
Okay, shoot
But-
those to
But I
me.
can email Jay
Yeah,
and,
okay.
and get that at a later date.
We're both kind of working on it this weekend, and, but shoot me what you got.
Okay.
And we'll tailor it and get it right. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. Got a motion to adjourn? Hearing no disagreement, meeting is adjourned.